got a distinguished group of designers and developers here today, joining me for a discussion of materials use in multifamily design and construction are Mary Johnston, FAIA, the co-founder of Johnston Architects out in Seattle. Hi, Mary.
Hi.
Megan McKay is a partner at the firm of Johnston Architects, and Newton Breiter, a PMP, lead AP from Lake Union Partners. He's the creative director and development manager at Lake Union Partners. We're going to be talking about some of Lake Union's projects here today. But we want to get into materials. What's the new stuff in materials? So, Megan, why don't you kick it off talking to us about balancing aesthetics and durability in some of the work you have done, your firm has done.
Yeah. Recently, we've been very intrigued with integrating metals, especially textured metals in our project. And this is because it's a high quality material and very durable, particularly from a maintenance standpoint. You don't have to field paint it to start, and you don't have to repaint it over the lifespan of the building. And it's inherently sustainable because it's recyclable. And it's also pretty cost effective on the spectrum of materials. Some like corrugated textures are really widely available and easily field workable. So we're finding that it's hitting a pretty good price point for the quality of material.
Are you using steel that rusts?
Yes, we are. Especially an example is our stencil project in the Central District of Seattle. We really like the weathering steel, or Corten, as it's sometimes known, because it counteracts a feeling of kind of newness or slickness and shininess. Some neighborhoods in Seattle in particular are really concerned about gentrification. So the warmth of the rusted material kind of has an instant feeling of age and warmth that we're really liking.
All right, but then there's older materials like brick. Mary, you want to talk about the use of brick in some of your projects?
Sure. We love brick. Brick is, of course, not a new material at all. It's an ancient material. But there are new ways of creating brick now that are a little more sustainable, which is great. And brick can be quite a sustainable material. It's totally recyclable. It's a good insulator, and it's quite durable. But the main reason we use brick is to blend in with context. If we're working in sort of an older neighborhood, our Winston project is right across the street from an old brick school. And so to blend into that neighborhood, we used brick quite extensively on that project. Okay. Brick also brings a certain warmth and kind of familiarity and scale to a project. We like to use it where people can touch it and get really close to it, because it brings up a lot of great memories for people as well.
Okay. Newton, you've used additional materials on some of your projects, like the Crown Hill project and another one, East Union. Could you just talk about your use of materials there, and why how you're using or not using cementitious siding and so forth?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think we align with some of the values that Johnston has as well. As a firm, we have a commitment to timelessness. I think designing for space, longevity, and sensitivity to local neighborhoods. Cementitious material, we just try to use it sparingly. I mean, I think there are elements of it that it is a quality material. There's some factors that make it sustainable. It has longevity. It's easy to maintain. And I think we utilize it and rely on good detailing, and that's, partnering with a good architect where the aesthetics, the warmth, and the design aren't compromised.
Talk about this mural, because you've got it on the Crown Hill project. You actually placed your mural on the cement board itself.
Correct. Yeah. Cementitious siding actually serves as a great substrate for paint. I mean, I think in our view, we typically don't want to paint a building bright colors. I think timelessness and a lot of timeless buildings typically have more soft or muted tones. And an opportunity like this of integrating artwork into the buildings, actually using cement tissue siding works really well. And it's a great substrate for architecture and art.
I'm going to get a plug in for, well, not a plug, but I was surprised at the use of pre-stressed panels in some of the stuff. There's some amazing, we think of pre-stressed panels as, just going up on industrial buildings, but I think for our audience, it's something to look at to see what some of the new types of pre-stressed panels that are out there. But that's the end of my plug for that. Mary, talk about wood.
Oh, wood. Well, I love wood too.
Well, you could go outside and just chop down trees out there in Seattle. So go ahead, tell us about wood.
Well, they chopped down trees for many years in Seattle, in the Northwest. And because we are in the Northwest, wood is a very important material. It's important historically, and it's readily available. So we love to use wood, though, where it can be really appreciated. I think of wood up close and personal as a real precious material. Although, it's abundant, it still brings so much warmth, and it really is part of the whole sort of idea of bringing nature a little bit closer to people in their everyday lives, because wood is a natural material. Wood traditionally needs weather protection, however. And so we try to use it where it's a little bit more protected from all the rain that we get up here, particularly. Although there are new processes now with wood where you can make it a lot more durable. It's a fairly expensive material to use in the exterior of multifamily projects. And so we try to use it where we can get a lot of bang for the buck, so to speak, in entryways.
Talk about Lee Street and Lynn Street. Talk about Lee Street and Lynn Street. You used there.
We used a mix of wood and metal to sort of differentiate the different units, and those two materials complement each other. We put a dark stain on the Lee Street project because the more pigment you put on a wood product, the more durable it is going to be, and that sort of blends with the metal as well.
Okay, yeah, and then you've used it on Lynn Street as an undercover for the balconies and so forth. Yeah.
The soffits and under balconies is a really good place to use it as sort of a sealing material to put lids on things.
Newton, let's talk about the factor of you're trying to achieve a certain look and feel with your projects, a timelessness. How do the materials that you're using fit into that? What are you using that's particularly helpful in that regard?
Sure. So, I mean, I think timeless materials, if you refer even to buildings that I think a lot of people romanticize, old brick buildings, for example, in Seattle, those are timeless materials, but a lot of times it's access to the current technology at the time. We still use those materials. We use them in modern applications or contemporary architecture. And refer to the elevations on our East Union project actually is kind of a good balance of multiple materials, some timeless ones, some more contemporary ones. And
which project was that, Newton?
East Union.
Yeah, East Union, right.
Yeah, East Union. And that facade, some of the focus on the pedestrian level is something that we tend to put more energy and some budget towards, where we'll focus on wood soffits, black storefronts, operable storefronts, so that we can see successful retailers and provide access for pedestrians. And then on the actual elevation of the building, it's comprised of wood, actually cementitious panel and larger scale windows. And so in that sense, it's a balance of cost, it's a balance of materials, and the focus is really the architectural detailing.
All right. Now there's a lot of talk about biophilia and nature and all that good stuff. Megan, talk to us about visual connection to nature. The great work of, I don't know if you're familiar with the great work of Lisa Heschong in this area, but Lisa has done some of the real research on views of nature and how important they are to to making people feel better and even improving health. So tell us about some of that.
Right. It's not only that visual connection with nature, but also there's a craving for being connected to your exact place in Seattle. There's a lot of like placeless architecture that's gone up. So first and foremost, really big floor to ceiling windows are important just for that visual connection to nature and to your hyper local place. And I think COVID in particular has kind of focused on having access to outdoor space, and a renewed interest even in unit-based private outdoor space like balconies. So balconies are a good tool for us. It gives us another dimension to work with on the facade. Like the facade itself could be very plain, and the balconies could add the interest, like our Alta Arlo project. We had really interesting balconies that we used kind of wood and metals on, that really added another dimension to that facade. And we're literally bringing in plants to the buildings, especially building lobbies. In our Mercer Lofts project, we brought plants into the lobby, and the central courtyard common space for residents is really important. So having strong visual connection from the lobby and units through large windows to see that plant life, very important.
Yeah. Again, I would point out to Lisa Heschong's research in this area. It's very, she actually has some decent studies that get to this whole point. Let's talk about some questions of durability and application. Your Winston project uses some beautiful brickwork, and I never understand why designers and contractors don't do more with the brick. There's so many things you can do with different, and you've got one here with the Winston project where you got a three-dimensionality to the brick, and like, really, how hard is that? Come on.
Well, there were a few complaints, a few complaints from the masons, but not many.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but they do like a challenge, and they like to be able to express their art really in a building, and that served us so well to do that. It's like a mural, only it's using just the building material itself. I like to think of it as like a tapestry on the building. It plays with light and shadow. The light hits it in different ways, and when you have an area of a project that inherently has to be a blank wall for some reason or another, to do something like that with it is very satisfying and gratifying, I think, and besides just totally fun. So we used a sort of mural on that project, but then we also used brick as in sort of a perforated way, so that in the entries there's some brick, but it's staggered so that light comes through it. And that is a whole different way to use the brick, which, is sort of like you can use perforated metal that way, which is sort of a newer, more interesting way to blend different kinds of metals as well. Yeah,
we're seeing a lot of use of architectural metals like that with the perforated effect, and it has its nice place, and it can be very dramatic.
Sure.
Yeah. Megan, you were talking about on Lee Street, mixing different profiles in there.
Yeah, so we used kind of a textured metal panel. Wasn't quite corrugated. It was like triangulated, and we used that vertically oriented at Lee Street, interspersed with the cementitious panel, and it allows the cement board product to not dominate the facade. It adds a lot of interest in unit-based rhythm.
Newton, let's talk about the use of murals and decorative artwork on exteriors of some of your project. You've got is it Midtown? Is that the project where you've done some dramatic
Correct.
stuff?
Midtown Square, and likewise we've with Crown Hill we worked on with Johnston has a big mural on it. Midtown Square uniquely has sensitivities around gentrification, but also just the impact on the neighborhood. As a firm, we've always tried to make sure that we're aware of that, partnering with local retailers, and then making sure that we're really proud of the architecture and construction of whatever project we have. Midtown Square has 9 individual local African-American artists engaged in pretty integrated artworks on the facade. So some of them are actually printed digital artwork on metal panel. Some of them are actually just typical traditional murals painted on masonry or brick, and some of them are 3-dimensional.
Oh, so you brought in local artists to do that. That's great. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the goal being really placemaking primarily, and then I think the idea of community ownership. And so in that project in particular, I think engaging with local artists was critical. And then that project in particular, given the scale, we had the opportunity to implement a large 16,000 square foot public square that's truly public on private land. So we're able to help operate and help program it for community events.
That's great. Okay. All right. So I'm going to throw the Rob Cassidy question at you that everybody hates, and that is, what's the biggest mistake or the biggest problem or the biggest concern that you've seen in the use of materials that you would hope could be rectified? And I'm going to ask Mary first because she's the senior person here. Go ahead, Mary.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that is a terrible question, Rob. But I would have to say, as much as I love to use wood in a project and as much value as it brings to a project, if it is not treated properly, if it's not prepared properly, installed properly, detailed properly, and the finish is not right, it quickly deteriorates and makes the project much less attractive and appealing and serviceable. Yeah. So I would say we put great effort into making sure that whenever we use wood, we treat it with a lot of respect.
All right. Okay. Who wants to go next? Newton and
I'm happy to. Yeah.
Go ahead, Newton.
I think it's really just an opportunity to emphasize the partnerships with architects and contractors. I think in design, the idea that paper is cheap and that you're building a building that lasts 50, 100, or hopefully more years. And so the detailing of it, the application of it, the treatment of wood and all the materials is going to lend itself to timelessness in design. I think warmth of material and quality over the years. And the mistakes we've been made is likely on oversight or partnering with the wrong people or just allowing kind of quality to not prevail. But I do think all the materials we've discussed today, including cementitious panel, they're all really high quality and they're all kind of state-of-the-art materials, and they all have the ability to be designed and applied really well. But it does take good emphasis and oversight.
All right, Megan, take us out of here. What's your big beef?
I think texture is so important in whatever material you use. So I think that there's not enough emphasis on creating interest through texture, especially in Seattle. So if you use cementitious products, break it up with a textured material. Even like on our Ferdinand project, we use cement board lap siding. And it's textured and it looks really slick with the metal panel. So you can be smart with your cement board.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks for all this discussion. We've been speaking to Mary Johnston. She's a fellow of the AIA and co-founding partner with her husband, Ray, at Johnston Architects out in Seattle, and her partner, Megan McKay, at Johnston, and Newton Breiter at Lake Union Partners. He's the creative director and development manager there. Thanks for your time today. It's been a lot of fun talking to you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, good to be with you. Thanks.